So the idea here is in Vipashyana, in simplicity, is almost not to meditate on any quality, not to meditate on any particular quality of mind. It's a resting, an almost resting, relaxing around anything that arises, allows us to relate with so much more easefulness to the states that arise. Does that make sense? A resting around things. And so this commentator writes, do not meditate on Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is that sort of open form of unified consciousness within which wisdom arises. And it's sort of beyond the ordinary mind. It's the mind of Buddha in some ways, to explain it that way. Do not meditate on Dharmakaya. Do not meditate on transcendence of the intellect. Do not meditate on emptiness. Do not meditate on birthlessness. Do not meditate on luminosity. And do not meditate on Mahamudra, on great being. So, what do you do? That's the question he asks. Now, these are all, just a pause here, these are all qualities that reflect this underlying nature of mind. It's very refined, our own, what he calls naked awareness, our own open, bare awareness that is formless, that has no shape, no color, no form, and so on. So he says, simply do not move the body. Do not close the eyes. Do not go after past consciousness. So something that maybe is coming to us from a prior experience, or recreating something that we've experienced before. Letting go of that, recreating that need to have an experience that I had last time, or had last year, or had on that retreat. So past consciousness, don't try to recreate anything from the past. And do not go to meet future consciousness. So not projecting into the future. Here's what I want to attain by doing this practice. Anticipatory kind of things. But rather completely rest solely in the present, without any calculation, but with vivid appearances. Clear knowing and a completely natural, naked consciousness. Completely natural, naked consciousness. This is not something that is sort of something we need to get from somewhere else, and it is fully natural. Rest rather in a state of clarity and naturalness. Rest relaxed, without tightness. Do not examine or analyze good or bad. Do not have doubts about what is or isn't. When thoughts appear, do not follow after their numerous appearances. Rest completely, like a sheaf of hay that has had its string cut. Rest, relaxed, in natural consciousness. Past thoughts have then ceased. Future ones have not arisen. In this relaxed, in-between state of the present, it is thus taught, the mind is no mind. The mind's nature merely is luminosity. Just this mind alone, which is completely empty, clear, aware, and lucid, is what is called the perfection of wisdom. Luminosity, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and Dharmakaya. Look directly and without being blind. Go where you're going and don't wander. See the truth and don't obscure it. That is the true nature. Rest naturally. If you relax this tightly bound mind, there is no doubt but that it will be liberated. So we get a sense here of the power of simplicity, right? The capacity to rest in what he calls naked consciousness or natural open awareness arises through simplicity. And it makes sense now why Vipashyana is often called simplicity. That by cultivating a mind that is stable and attentive and deeply at ease, the calm abiding of Shamatha, out of this arises a view, an experience, a resting in simplicity itself. No longer is effort necessary. No longer is striving or trying necessary for us, but allowing things to fall away, allowing mind to arise, seeing it for what it is, seeing the patterns, seek to pull our attention out of that resting state into response, into impulses, tendencies, karmas, if you will. How body, speech, and mind can be disorganized and reactive based on what comes. But allowing all of that to be, even those impulses, without feeding them energy or fighting them or following them, but just bearing witness with open awareness. This is the practice. This is not saying this is terribly easy to do or terribly difficult, but it is natural. It is seen to be very natural. And often it's a question of having patience, having enough sort of patience with ourselves so that this wheel that keeps spinning, this momentum of our lives, has a chance to just begin to slowly come to a stop. We can't do it all at once. Maybe we can once in a while. But by allowing things to be as they are and allowing it to come to a stop, it's almost like we're driving a car or pedaling on a bicycle. And we choose to take our feet off the gas pedal or off the pedals of the bicycle and just let it come to rest when it's ready. The momentum, it will. So having a way to hold, to bear witness. A friend of mine, Martin Lowenthal, calls it hosting. I really like that term, hosting presence. Hosting the busyness, hosting that which arises, hosting distractions. This, in some ways, this reading reminds me of Zen. It's a very much kind of a Zen rooted view of Mahamudra. In fact, Zen Buddhism and Mahamudra are very similar in some ways, and particularly in this particular way, viewing mind in this way. And in Zen, the great Suzuki Roshi, the master who brought some of the first leanings of Buddhism to the West, to Westerners, who often talked about this view of mind as being like grazing sheep on a hillside. And if you have a very small field for them to graze, it's going to feel very cluttered. So here the sheep are a representative of just all the content of mind, all the thoughts and forms and so on. And then awareness itself is the hillside. So if we give them just a very tiny pen, then it's going to get very cluttered and you almost suffocate in the midst of that clutteredness, if that's a word, the cluttering. However, if you allow them to graze on a vast open hillside, there's plenty of room. That's the generosity, the spirit of generosity and hosting that we bring to our own mind, to our own thoughts and distractions and sufferings. It's almost a loving gesture, really, to our own thoughts. No longer harshly judging the sheep as they seek to graze, but we allow for a much larger, more expansive pasture. The other metaphor is much like Rumi's poem, The Guest House, that often people really enjoy, is to meet all of those qualities of ourselves that show up at the door if we're the host of a mansion and they come knocking on the door, to let them in and let them have as big a house as they need to sort of run through. And there'll be another one coming. And then they will leave and another one will come. But being the host means there's a spirit of generosity. It's not expecting things to be different, but it's more about the spirit of how we are receiving what arises. And then the last metaphor is often used, mind as water, and suffering or discontent or thoughts, distractions as being like salt. And if you have a very small glass of water and you put a cup of salt into that glass of water, the water is undrinkable. It's almost too much salt, right? But if you put it into a really huge lake, the water remains sweet. So mind here being that expansive, huge lake that with a little bit of salt, it just evaporates in the midst of that. This is, so these are, on one hand, central teachings in Tibetan Buddhism, but also they carry a lot of weight for the long haul of our practice. And so I feel like it's important to bring these up and to talk, kind of talk about this quality of mind that are there within the teachings. Vipashyana being that state in which we may ask, okay, I've been cultivating a sustained voluntary attention, a mind that's open and clear, bearing in mind all that comes, not attaching, not judging it, and maybe even meeting it with kindness, but then what? And then it's getting to know that more refined, subtler state of awareness, what he calls naked consciousness, or sometimes it's translated as bare awareness or mindful presence. It's all pretty much the same thing. There is a vividness to it that begins to grow the more we're able to invite that aspect of mind to surface, to arise naturally. And that vividness of mind, that clarity, is what is seen to be luminosity, just a very pristine, sharp, clear brightness of mind. So mind is also very vivid. We come to know mind in that way. And so gradually, by not projecting into the future or trying to expect things from the past, as he tells us in this reading, we encounter it as a fresh quality. It's not just natural, but it's fully fresh in this moment, present moment, he says. And that's really the location of being mindful. Mindfulness is bearing witness and being attentive to the present alone. That's where the good stuff happens. It's where our own capacity and potential lies, is being here and now, and firmly rooted here and now, and resting in a relaxed way with mind. Breathing helps. Maybe the 4 elements helps. Kindness, compassion, meditation, Tonglen, whatever it is. These are all great tools then to bring into the experience in which we encounter kind of the rockiness of life. Eventually that settles. So